my oldest son is getting ready to go to college. And in order for me to prepare him to get ready to go to college, I decided it would be a great idea to take him to all the different college campuses that I thought maybe he would like to go see. So I made a list of the college campuses that I thought maybe he'd like to go see. So I thought. That you thought. That I thought. That he would like to go see. This is a very key element that he's already pointed out in the story. And he's beating me to the punch. I don't know that I appreciate that. But anyway, so I picked, because these are the ones I thought we could basically get around to, was OU, OSU, UCO, Oklahoma Christian, Harding University, Abilene University, and I told him I would take him out to Lipscomb University out in Tennessee if that's someplace that he wanted to go. And so over last summer, not this one, but over last summer, we proceeded on every weekend or every other weekend to take a trip out to one of these universities. We would meet some of the teachers, we'd meet some of the professors, we'd walk around, we'd look at the entire institution, and we would go through all these different places. And I spent many hours in a car driving to all of these different locations and then coming all the way back. And about August, September of last year, I told my son, okay, we visited all these places. You need to figure out where we're going to submit some applications, because the time for early enrollment so that you can get considered for scholarships is like October, November of last year. And so I'm like, we got to get this in, you got to get this done. And so I say, so let's pick 4, and you tell me which 4 that we're going to send your resumes to, or your stuff to, which by the way is the free number. This number they send out for free. So, which 4 are we sending out for free is what I'm basically asking him to determine where we're going to send his transfer credits or his GPA and his ACT scores and all that stuff. And so he looks at me and he says, well, I need to do a little bit of research first. And I'm like, okay. And I had been telling him the entire way through this exercise to keep all the pamphlets, to keep all the information, both the financial and the different things. And then I would have him write notes when we were done about his impressions of the schools. I would pepper him with questions on the way back. What do you think? How do you compare this? Write all this stuff down so that when you're doing a comparison, you have it. And I'm like, great. So I give him a couple of days and I'm like, okay, you got this figured out now. Where do you want us to send the applications? He pulls up his phone and says, Texas A&M, Georgia Tech, University of Illinois, and some other place. And I'm like, where did you get these places? Oh, I looked them up on the internet. These are 5 of the top 10 engineering schools in the nation. And I'm thinking to myself, what did I waste all my time for? That's story number 1. My son chose Lipscomb. Why did he choose Lipscomb? Because they gave him a really big fat scholarship. He was also really impressed with all their mission work that they do and all these various locations that he can do, and he thought that would be a really great opportunity. But that's where he's going. So he's going out to Lipscomb if you have any questions. So this is my last summer with him, right? And it's starting to make my wife a little sad. And so me, as a parent, I'm thinking there's got to be a way that I can maximize this summer. So I start looking for ways that I can start spending more time with my son and figuring out a way that we can do activities together so that we can at least get a little bit more bonding in before he leaves the house and goes off on his own world. Have you seen my son lately? What is it that you think that he likes to do?
Gone.
Say again?
Gone.
Gone? No? Fun. Yes, he does like fun. Anybody else? If you haven't seen my son lately, he is now built like this.
Oh, wow.
So what is it that you think he likes to do? He likes to work out. And I look at myself and I'm like, I could probably use the gym. Why don't I go out and I'll work out with him? And so I asked him if it would be all right if over the summer we work out together. I'm like, I realize I might slow you down a little bit. I realize that I can't keep up with you a little bit, but I don't know anything about working out. So I was hoping you would teach me. I'm like, this way I can spend time with you and you can teach me something and we can just share this experience. He says, Dad, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. So I go work out with him. And I learned something really fast. My son can outlift me by twice. Okay? Not once, not 1.5, not a little anything. Everything we did, he did double the weight. There's this machine that embarrassed me so much. It's called the dip machine or something like that. You get up there and you lower yourself down on this machine. And the one we went to use has a thing called dip assist. You put this little paddle out, you put your knees on it, and then you put a little plug into a particular amount of weight, and it's going to offset your body weight by that much. And so he looks at me after we've done some stuff, and he says, all right, let's do this. And he sets it up, and he picks a particular weight based on how much he knows I weigh. He says, you could probably do about this much. You know, being very encouraging. Yeah, you got this, Dad, you got this. So he plugs it in there, and we put on the dip. And I go do it, and sure enough, he picked about the right, because it was pretty hard. But I felt, like, okay, that was a good challenge. And so it's my turn to rest, and it's his turn to go. He puts the paddle up, straps on this belt that has a 45-pound weight attached to it, and then does his entire body weight plus the 45 pounds. I can't even do my own body weight, and here this boy isn't heavy enough that he's got to have more weight. Anyway, all that comes done. We work out. And I'm finally done working out. And the next day, I can't lift my arms. Okay? I don't mean literal. I don't mean like I'm just sore and it really hurts to do this. No. I can't lift my arms. I can't get them above here. It just hurts way too much. It was so bad I couldn't even drive. Well, it turns out I go to the doctor because I was taking some medication, and the doctor tells me I might have had a bad interaction between working out and this medication. In fact, me working out on this particular medication was causing my body to destroy my muscles and feed the waste material into my liver and into my kidneys. And I was going to destroy my liver and kidneys if I continued this. So guess what my doctor told me? Quit working out. So how many of you have a doctor's note to avoid the gym? This guy. So last story that I got, and this one's fairly recent, and then we're going to get into the text of Habakkuk. Just the other day, my kids come back from camp, and I am still worried about my oldest son becoming this man that I want him to be. And I'm worried that he's not going to carry all the teachings that I have, and that he's not going to be able to look out for himself or something, right? So he comes back from camp, and his younger brother definitely is not ready for college. Right? He doesn't do anything unless we push and prod him. But my older son feels like he's starting to get there a little bit. Well, I get home from camp, and my oldest son throws himself down on the floor and just lays there. And my oldest son comes in and he talks to us about all these things. Their stuff is still in the car. They haven't gotten any of their luggage out or any of that stuff. It's all just sitting out there in the car. It's raining, so they don't want to get out there and get it. Maybe because it's raining, they want to bring it in. That's fine. So they sit there and they talk to us for a little bit. And then at one point, my oldest son says, okay, I'm going to go get the stuff from the car. Let's go, Nathan. Let's go get it. My youngest son. And he looks at him and goes, no, it's raining. Let's not do that. I'm tired. I don't want to do this right now. And my oldest son looks at him and says, you do what you want, but I'm going to go take care of this stuff because it's time for me to get all that stuff put away and cleaned up because I don't want it on my mind later tonight when I'm trying to have fun. And he looks at Nathan and he says, you should consider that yourself. To which my younger son says, fine. He gets up, he walks into the other room to get his shoes. And then my older son looks at me and my wife, who's sitting on the couch talking to him, and he just says, that easy. He completely manipulated his brother to go out there and get all their stuff together. Because he didn't have the keys. They drove by his brother's car, right? Anyway, I think he's going to be okay. He's leaving, but I think he's going to be okay. All right. We are in this big series talking about prayers. And we're looking through the famous prayers through the Old Testament, looking through the famous prayers through Scripture. And we're trying to figure out whether there's something from these prayers that can help us adapt our own prayer life to turn into something else. Well, the prayer that I've been assigned for this week comes from the 3rd chapter of Habakkuk. And so go ahead and turn there. And we're going to read this, and we're going to go through this. And I want this to be partially a lesson in context. You understand what I mean by that? We're going to read it, and the prayer isn't going to have any of the context with it. And so then we're going to go back a little bit and discuss the context and see how it changes your impression of the prayer. Does that seem like a reasonable plan?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I'll raise your hands. How many people have you ever studied Habakkuk? I got like 2. This is great. It's been around forever. You know, it's been in here for a while, but nobody ever studies these books, and that's just fun. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. And because this is the section we're trying to cover, we're going to read all of chapter 3. So if somebody would be brave enough for me and read verses 1 and 2.
A prayer of Habakkuk, the prophet, according to Shigamel.
Skip that word.
Okay.
None of the scholars actually know what it means, so if they don't know what it means, we can ignore it.
Lord, I have heard the report about you. Lord, I stand in awe of your deeds. Revive your work in these years. Make it known in these years. In your wrath, remember mercy.
So how does he begin the prayer? What are some of the phrases that are supposed to stick in your head?
Praise.
Oh, Lord, it's supposed to stick in your head. Great. That's good. So say it, somebody else.
Well, it starts with praise.
Starts with praise. Okay.
He says he fears them. I fear thee, O Lord.
Well, fear is a sign of respect. It's another term for respect in this stuff.
He has knowledge.
He has knowledge. Okay.
Ask for mercy.
He asks for mercy in what?
Perhaps.
Right.
I want you to think about that.
For our time.
So something happened.
Something happened. Something's happened. O Lord, provide your mercy in wrath and renew them in our day. Renew your plans in our day. What's going on? I want you to keep that in the back of your head, because the text for this particular prayer is different than most prayers that you're going to read. This is actually some kind of song, kind of a lament song that has prayers kind of at the beginning and at the end, but in the middle, he shifts a little bit and starts talking in a manner that's not prayer-like. It's a description of either, it's not really a vision, he's kind of walking through history, but he's describing God to the audience, and he's describing how God presents himself to the audience to help his prayer make a little bit more sense and have a little bit more context for what he's going to say. So what you're about to read as we continue is not prayer, it's singing about, context is the wrong word, it's singing about a description of how God is and how they need to picture God and what God has done so that you understand prayer a little bit more. So if somebody please, go ahead and read 3 through 7.
God comes from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. His splendor covers the heavens, and the earth is full of his praise. His brilliance is like light. Rays are flashing from his hand. This is where his power is hidden. Plague goes before him, and pestilence follows in his steps. He stands and shakes the earth. He looks and startles the nations. The age-old mountains break apart. The ancient hills sink down. His pathways are ancient. I see the tents of Cushan in distress. The tent curtains of the land of Midian tremble.
So what's the picture you get here? How is Habakkuk describing God?
Much more the presence of I hate to say entity. I mean, it's like there is something there,
Okay.
and all the evil that can occur surrounds him, but doesn't touch him.
Okay. So he's much more present in the situation, much more aware. What's some of the more specifics? What kind of thing do you see in this description of God?
He's all powerful.
He's all powerful. Okay.
I see a lot of scary stuff.
You see a lot of scary stuff. The scary stuff is describing God doing what? destruction. Okay, I'm going to read a couple of key phrases, and maybe it will jog your memory of a couple things. You probably don't know where Taman or Mount Paran are, but if I told you that they were the Arabian Peninsula in between Egypt and Israel, and then I talked to you about the tents of the Cushan in distress and the Midianites in anguish, does it remind you of any other biblical passages?
The wilderness, I guess the wilderness.
The wilderness wanderings, maybe. If I say the words, his glory covered the heavens and praise filled the earth, and plague went before him and pestilence followed his steps, what does that remind you?
Egypt.
Egypt and the Exodus. This is his description of the way God looks like, at least in this part, of him delivering his people out of Egypt and bringing them into the promised land. This is the scary God who crushed those in front of him as he was delivering his people. Let's keep going. Let's go 8 through 10, please. Well, let's do further than that because we got a lot of text to go. Let's go 8 through 13.
Were you angry with the rivers, O Lord? Was your wrath against the streams? Did you rage against the sea when you rode with your horses and your victorious chariots? You uncovered your bow and called for many arrows. You split the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and withered. Torrents of water swept by. The deep roared, that lifted its waves on high. Sun and moon stood still in the heavens at the glint of your flying arrows, at the lightning of your flashing spear. In wrath you strode among the earth, and in anger you threshed the nations. You came out to deliver your people, to save your anointed one. You crushed the leader of the land of wickedness, and you stripped him from head to foot.
So what's the picture you get there?
Victorious?
Victorious and
He is not happy with his people,
okay.
but he's also protecting them, it seems like, as well.
Okay.
At
So
the
he's-
same time.
You can definitely tell in the text that his anger seems to be focused somewhere.
Right.
You can definitely tell in this part of the text that he has this very big battle motif, is the way that I like to describe it, with arrows and swords. When it talks about with his own spear, you pierced his head. When his warriors stormed out and scatter us, what does that remind you of from the text? You came out to deliver your people, to save your anointed one. Does that remind you of anything? How about David and Goliath? Are you going to say that out loud?
Yes.
Speak up. My class always encourages speaking. David and Goliath, saving his anointed one. The spear through his head, like when David chopped his head off with the sword, but delivered it with a sling straight to the head, right? There's this image. When you look at the very beginning, it talks, were you angry with the rivers? Was your wrath against the streams? Does that describe anything to you? When the torrents of the water swept by and the deep roared and lifted its waves on high, is that a picture that you can remember something from? Say it louder.
The Red Sea.
The Red Sea. It's kind of this picture maybe of the waves being piled up while God is leading his people through on his mighty chariot against the Egyptians. Do you understand? This is a theophany picture of God as we go through here. So the author is walking through all these great battle scenes where Israel was delivered at some point. So keep that in mind as we keep going. 16. And we're going to go 16 through 19. This is the beginning of the prayer again. So we've described God and his theophany and his deliverance, and we're going back to prayer. Somebody pick it up, please.
I heard and I trembled within. My lips quivered at the sound. Rottenness entered my bones. I trembled where I stood. Now I must quietly wait for the day of distress to come against the people invading us. Though the fig tree does not bud and there is no fruit on the vines, though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food, though the flocks disappear from the pen and there are no herds in the stall, yet I will celebrate in the Lord. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. The Lord, my Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like those of a deer and enables me to walk on mountain heights.
All right, pause right there. We don't need to read the last one. What's the picture you have here? How does he end his prayer?
But there's kind of, that they're facing desolation, but regardless, he knows that God is there with him. That I know I'm not hitting right.
No, you're doing just fine. He realizes that calamity is about to come upon the nation of Israel. He realizes that they are about to face starvation, that they are about to face failed crops, that they are about to face terrible, terrible times. And his response to that, in the words of Habakkuk, are, "Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in my Savior. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He enables me to go to the heights." So what's his conclusion with the knowledge that bad things are about to happen?
Total surrender.
Total surrender.
God's in control.
God's in control. What were you going to say?
I'm going to say that he has great faith in the Lord to carry him through.
He has great faith in the Lord to carry him through. It's interesting that they say it gives you he gives him the feet of the deer on the heights. What's that picture mean to you?
Sure-footedness.
Sure-footedness. Okay. When I think of deer, I think that they're running away, and I think that they're fleeing to the heights to avoid the dangers and the troubles. And that God will enable them to get over that, even in these bad times. So that's his prayer. That's what we're supposed to take from this, is bad things happen, get over it. Right?
Right.
Right.
This too will pass.
This too will pass. Does that seem okay?
Encouraging.
It's encouraging?
Yeah, I mean,
Woo!
Great track history.
All right, I'm gonna step back for a moment, and I'm gonna say this to you. I want each of you to think of a bad time in your life. Okay? I want you to think of a time when you were struggling, or when you were hurting, or when you were just facing this dire situation. And if somebody would just come up to you while you're facing this miserable time and would just say, "Well, don't worry about it. God's got a plan." How many of you would want to slap that person in the face? Right?
Right.
That's the way this feels right here and right now. Oh Lord, please show your mercy and wrath. I know things are going to get really bad and we're going to starve, but I'm going to rejoice with you. I'm going to say that I'm this kind of person. I'm going to do all these great things. And I'm going to remain faithful when everything bad is going on. And that's the prayer that we're presented with. What we're missing a little bit of is context. Okay? And that's where the rest of the book of Habakkuk comes into play. And that's what we're going to spend another 10 minutes on, and then we're going to try to wrap it up a little bit. See if I can give you something useful to take home to your lives, right? So if you would turn back with me to the very beginning of the book, let's see what we can do with this flippant prophet. Let's go here. Somebody please read chapter 1, verses 1 through 4.
The oracle which Habakkuk the prophet saw. How long, O Lord, will I call for help, and thou wilt not hear? I cry out to thee, violence, yet thou dost not save? Why dost thou make me see iniquity and I'm sorry, I can't read, and cause not to look on wickedness? Yet destruction and violence are before me. Strife exists and contention arises. Therefore, the law is ignored and justice is never upheld. For the wicked surround the righteous, therefore justice comes out perverted.
All right. What is Habakkuk saying?
Not fair.
It's not fair. What else?
A lot of questions.
A lot of question.
Where are you?
Where are you?
Help.
Help?
Frustration.
Frustration? Anybody else got an adjective they want to use? You add it all up, and it comes up to one accusation. I don't mean a question, I mean an accusation. What is the accusation that Habakkuk is making?
Things are getting worse.
Things are getting worse, and
Don't care.
you don't care. You're not doing your job, God. What's up with that? Does this remind you of anybody?
Myself.
Yourself. Fair enough. Does it remind you of anybody from any other part of the text? Any other book?
Job.
Job. The form of literature that you find here in Habakkuk is a piece of wisdom literature, just like Job is. You have this argumentative case presented. You have this this challenging of the order of things, just like Job did with God. Job presented a case that says, I have been mistreated, you have done me wrong, God. Answer me, because you have not done the right thing. Habakkuk does the exact same thing. He looks, he sees the world around him in the society of Judah upon which he lives, and he sees violence, he sees injustice, he sees wickedness, he sees perversion, and he is saying to God, how long? What are you going to do about this? How come you haven't destroyed this civilization that we have right now? How come you haven't done something about all these terrible things that are going on in my life, but not mine specifically in our society? Why haven't you acted? And that's the question he poses to God. Luckily for us, the text continues. Somebody please read. We're going to read 5 through 7. We're not going to read the entire part. We're just going to do 5 through 7 for time's sake.
Look at the nations and watch and be
This is God
utterly,
responding if you didn't know that. Keep going. Sorry.
look at the nations and watch, be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. I am raising up the Babylonians, that ruthless and impetuous people, who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwelling places not their own. They are a feared and dreadful people. They are a law unto themselves and promote their own honor.
Pause there. So, Habakkuk's complaint is there's injustice, there's evil, there's tyranny, there's terrorists. And God's response is,
You ain't seen nothing yet.
you ain't seen nothing yet. He says, I'm going to raise up the Babylonians. I am bringing them forward. And they are ruthless, impetuous people, and they're going to sweep across the entire world. What is God saying?
Here they come.
Here they come.
And they are a law unto themselves. I think that's an interesting phrase.
Okay.
They do what they want to.
They do what they want to do. You are worried about the injustices in your society. Don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of your society. I'm going to wipe your society away, and I'm bringing in the Babylonians to do it. You think that's the answer Habakkuk wanted to hear?
Not really.
Not really. Well, let's see what Habakkuk says about that. Let's keep going. We'll pick up starting in verse 12 of chapter 1. Let's go 12 and 13. Somebody please.
Are you not from eternity, Yahweh, my God, my Holy One? You will not die. Lord, you appointed them to execute judgment. My rock, you destined them to punish us.
Yes, please.
Okay.
13.
Your eyes are too pure to look on evil, and you cannot tolerate wrongdoing. So why do you tolerate those who are treacherous? Why are you silent while one who is wicked swallows up one who is more righteous than himself?
Okay, what's the argument he's making?
Why are you using evil to fix this problem?
Ding, ding, ding. The Babylonians are worse, God. You don't like things that are bad. You can't tolerate evil or iniquity or injustice. I'm complaining about iniquity and all this stuff. Why are you using this terrible power to fix my problem? So you're just going to make the problem worse, right? That's not an answer. That's not a solution. Why did I bother bringing this problem to you if you're just going to make things worse, right? That's the frustrated mindset that I can hear coming out of Habakkuk as he makes these. And you can read a little bit further, 15 through 17, 14 through 17 for the rest of this chapter, and you will see that he just expounds upon the evil that is the Babylonian people. And then I'll read this section. And then he closes off his response to God at the beginning of chapter 2 by saying, I will stand my watch, and I'll station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me and what answer I am to give to this complaint. So what is he going to do?
Let's see how this is going to unfold.
Okay.
I think there's a curiosity. I mean, there's fear.
Okay. So it's a little bit more than that, but yeah. Anybody else?
I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do.
I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. He's good.
I'm not giving up. I'm staying here.
I'm not giving up, I'm staying. Okay. If he goes out on the ramparts, or in other translations, if he goes up to the watchtower, he is looking and standing guard, is the image you're supposed to have. And he is declaring to God, I am going to stand here and I'm going to wait for your response and the justification for the actions that you're about to take with these people. He is standing in challenge to God. He doesn't accept God's answer. Instead, he's going to put himself out there where God can see him and everybody else can see him and say, I demand you, God, to explain yourself and these actions. That's what he's doing. Okay?
He's got guts.
He's got, in the Old Testament, they call it chutzpah or something along those lines. But yes, he's got this undeniable courage, undeniable persistence, the stubbornness, like you won't believe, whatever you want to say. He's just like, no, this is not right. You're going to make this right for me. I brought you a problem. You need to fix it. Let's go. I'm not leaving until you give me a better answer. Okay? That's the picture you're supposed to have. All right, I got a little bit more time. Let's see how God responds to him. I don't want to go into the whole part of the text, so we're just going to read a couple of key verses out as we continue reading through chapter 2. But the beginning, when the Lord replies, he says this, write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it. In other words, what you're about to hear is permanent, right? Write it down. This is for everybody to hear. This is so that you can broadcast to the world. I'm not changing my mind. I'm so sure of what I'm about to tell you that you can write this down. Okay. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it will linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. What does he say?
It's gonna happen.
It's going to happen, but it's not going to
now.
Not gonna be now. It's not gonna happen on your time. But just because it hasn't happened now, don't think that it's not gonna happen. It's coming. You understand?
God is saying he is in control.
I am in control of the time.
I think there's, the Habakkuk has this perception that now is
Right.
time.
Right.
God's thinking much bigger.
God has his own timeline for this. You're 100%. 4. See, he is puffed up. His desires are not upright, but the righteous will live by his faith. Right? Indeed, wine betrays him. He is arrogant. He is never at rest because he is greedy as the grave. And like death is never satisfied, he gathers to himself all the nations and takes captives of all the people. Will not all of them taunt him with ridicule and scorn? So basically he's saying, it's coming. I've got a plan. These things are going to unveil themselves. But the righteous, through all this, will live by faith. And then he speaks what we call the 5 woes. And we're just going to read individual verses as we go through so that you understand. The very first thing you need to hear from this is God answering his complaint. Did God cave into his desires? Not really. Does God really care if he stands on that wall all day long? The answer is no. But he gives him this tidbit in there that says, look, you don't know when this is coming. You don't know what's going on. You see all these bad people doing all these things around you, but the righteous will live by faith. Faith in the fact that these events are coming. Faith in the fact that what this prophecy is about to tell you will come to fruition. And then his prophecy is this, 5 woes. Somebody read verse 7 for me real quick. Or I'll read it, 6. It's the latter half of 6. Woe to him who piles up stolen goods and makes himself wealthy by extortion. How long must this go on? Will not your debtors rise? Will they not wake up and make you tremble? Then you will become their victim. And then the next woe in verse 9. Woe to him who builds his realm by unjust gain, to set his nest on high, to escape the clutches of ruin. The next woe is in verse 12. Woe to him who builds a city with bloodshed and establishes a town by crime. Has not the Lord Almighty determined that people's labor is only fuel for the fire, that the nations exhaust themselves for nothing? The next is in 15. Woe to him who gives drink to his neighbors, pouring it from the wineskins till they are drunk, so that they can gaze on their naked bodies. You will be filled with shame instead of glory. Now it is your turn. Drink and be exposed. The final woe comes in verse 19. Woe to him who says to wood, come to life, or to the lifeless stone, wake up, and it give guidance. It is covered with gold and silver, but there is no breath in it. The 5 woes basically cover this. Someone who piles up wealth for themselves by taking advantage of the poor and those around them. Someone who builds up his realm by doing unjust things through corruption. Woe to him. The third one is he who builds for himself by killing and slaughtering people. The fourth one is he who, woe to the person who, through too much wine, takes advantage of those around him and turns to drunkenness and sex. And the fifth woe being those who turn to idolatry and idolize worthless things over the God himself.
You're not talking directly to us?
That's what I was going to say. Great question. Great question. In fact, that literally is the question. Habakkuk's entire complaint before God was that his generation and that his people were unjust and unfair and doing terrible, terrible things. And God's answer to that was,
They're going to be destroyed.
say again,
They're going to be destroyed.
they're going to be destroyed. Now I question you. Don't those woes describe our nation? Don't those woes describe what our society seems to value now more than ever before? I work for a military contractor. It is my job to build products and services that defend our nation against all other nations. I am very patriotic. I actually like doing my job, and I get a sense of fulfillment and of knowing that I build things to protect my neighbors and my family and my friends in this land. You understand? I do that. But I look at this passage and I look at the descriptions of the things that are going on there, and I have to ask myself if this is a cycle that God seems to use, which is when his people become corrupt and when his people start to fade away, he brings in even more corrupt people. He brings in even worse people to come in and destroy them. Is that the kind of cycle that's going to come upon us and in this nation if we don't turn around? You understand what I'm saying? Now, back to the prayer and the point. Throughout all of this, Habakkuk finally comes to the realization of what God's talking about. He's given an insight to the mind of God about what God is going to do, and that things happen according to his timeline in a manner that he wants them to. And his response is to recount the glorious things that God has done for him, and then say, "Yet I will rejoice in the Lord, and I will be joyful in God and my Savior when all the bad things happen." It's an acceptance that his nation is about to be blown away, with the understanding that his nation is not the big deal, but following God in faith is. When God says earlier in the chapter, "But the righteous shall live by faith," throughout all of these bad things, Habakkuk finally gets it through his head that if I'm going to be righteous and show God that I have faith, then I will respond so that I can live through these things. I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful. I will be joyful in God my Savior. So, the lesson that I want you to take from this in some of your prayers: how many times do you ask God to fix the bad times that come to you? How many times do you ask God to help you avoid the bad times in your life? How many times do you pray, "Lord, don't let that happen to me"? There's a commercial out there about people getting notifications on their phone that they're going to have a car accident that afternoon, and then requesting if they can reschedule it because it doesn't actually work out for them. You understand? That kind of seems to be the character of our nation and how we go about doing business. I don't want to experience the bad times. But God is showing through his history that he will always deliver us. And sometimes the bad times are necessary for him to renew his society, and for him to renew his people, and for him to maybe renew you. So I'm not telling you to say, "Lord, let me have a car accident today." If you take that away, that's not my point. But sometimes these bad events need prayers of acceptance. Sometimes these bad events need for us to sit down and say, "Lord, thy will be done. I will rejoice in the situation that I have. I will accept the situation that you've given me, and I will endure because you have always delivered the people." You should read Habakkuk 2, verse 20. It's an amazing way that God finishes his argument. Thank you for your time. Is there